So my presentation is on what is called the accelerated data lake, or the 3x3x3, and I'm going to explain what the 3 threes are in a little bit. Today my session is all about me talking and not too many slides, and I'll just throw through the agenda really quick. That doesn't represent all the slides, but most of them. You'll see that I'm going to talk about what are the organisational data challenges people have today. You're hearing all about data lakes. Which one do you swim in? We're going to look at what the accelerated data lake is. I'll just wait till we're all in. There we go. Simon, I'm going to need an extra 5 minutes. You know that. That's all right. Oh, they can hear. They can hear. You've got to come in. You've got to fill the seats. We've got analytic. I'm going to do a demonstration showing you live consumption of data at scale. I'm going to show you real-time data coming in and being combined with static data. I'm going to show you that data being able to be queried live. That data is not CSVs. It's going to be JSON CSVs. It's going to be all sorts of stuff. Welcome. Very brave to come up to the front. I do get people to come up, so you're already halfway there. I'm going to then talk about what services we use for analytics and insights, how we can actually start querying the data, and then I'm going to do a final demonstration of bringing everything together. So, before we start, I'm going to ask you this question. I'm pretty sure most of you are in the room because of this particular question's answer. So, what do you see as the single biggest technology challenge for Australia's public service by 2030? Do you love how it's like 2030, we've got 10 years, no stress. It's not about public service either, it's really any organisation. I present all across the world, and when I meet people, it's this problem I'm going to talk about is with everybody. I didn't actually ask this question. It was actually asked to Marley Carnegie, who's a Australian Public Sector review panel member. And she's working on how do we enable the government to break down these departmental silos when you've got really constrained funds. You don't think you've got the skills in-house to actually work with all of these different data sets to get the insights together. She's saying that this is really hard, and I'm actually going to challenge that today and say to you, you know what, if you have people who are already doing queries with data today, they're using tools like Power BI or Tableau or ClickSense or Elasticsearch, all of those skills, or even SQL, let's say even SQL, all of those skills can be used today with what I'm going to show you immediately. So you don't have to reskill your team. You can actually enable them. It can be an and conversation, not an or a but or a no. It's something very exciting and liberating. And when I actually show this live and I see it rolled out and we roll it across lots of organisations, it's empowering to watch. It's so exciting to see people excited about extending what they could do on-prem in the cloud securely, quickly, getting insights from day one. It's just really awesome. So we're going to talk about how we can address all of these things with what is called the accelerated data lake solution. But to get to that, I've got to go through a couple of journeys, and I know this is a 300 session, so I've got to dive a bit deeper, and I'll go reasonably quickly through it. But the first challenge we've got is data silos. We've got data in let's call the names out, right? Because you've all got one, I'm sure of it. You've got an Oracle, you've got a Microsoft, you've got a SQL Server, you've got a Netezza appliance, you've got SAP. Who knows what you've got, right? That stuff's everywhere. And usually that person on the bottom right-hand side is the linchpin. And that person, you can see, is a bit skewed, like their attitude with the rest of the other data sets. They don't want to share. And I think if you were in the previous session, you would have heard they were talking about space, and they were saying, oh, you know, we've got all this data, but it's not easily able to be shared. It's tricky. We have those in every organisation, and I've lived that dream where this one person is like immutable. You cannot get in there. Got to solve that. When you have all of your data in different systems, how do you govern that? You've got the Oracle owner, who's the DBA, and says, no, you can't come in because this is only for the analytics team. And you've got some data from the SQL Server environment, which has all your CRM, or you've got HR in there, and they're going, well, that's all sensitive data. We can't give you that. We then have scenarios where there's no governance. Like, I don't know, I'm not even going to ask you to put your hand up about how awesome your data governance is in your organisation. I know that it is, I know that, but there's probably ways we could slightly improve it to make it even better so we know what the data is, how it actually got there, how it was transformed, who owns it, who actually is the application owner. All of those things. I'm sure that you've got some of those already in place, but there's got to be a way to make that even better. And the final bit is scalability. And if you saw me last year presenting, I actually showed live how we can consume 25 years of data. Most of you, I reckon, have 25 years of data sitting on a system that's ready to be upgraded so you can actually make it 30 years of data. Congratulations, because that's a few $million bucks. Spin that wheel. I'm going to show you how to do it live today. I'm going to consume that data live. So we don't have to worry about scaling. We're going to show you how you can just keep adding data, and our environment will just scale. You know, Clinton's in the front here. I keep pressing the laser. I don't mean to do it, man. He keeps going green on me. Okay. The challenge is, though, we've got all these lakes to swim in. We've got a new service from AWS called Lake Formation. That's not what the accelerated data lake solution is. The AWS Lake Formation is a really simple service to get you started to get data into a centralized location, which is actually the same places where we have the accelerated data. But it actually hides a lot of the heavy lifting, the hard work to set up Amazon S3 buckets, a bit of security. It actually creates its own user access groups. So you actually don't have the same kind of identity access management and users that you would normally expect. It actually creates a new group. So it creates some simplicity, but it also creates some complexity, because if you want to integrate with other services, it's not so streamlined. But it takes away a lot of the challenges, and I'm not diving into that today. The second one is that we actually have lots of AWS solutions, pre-built examples of how to build data lakes on AWS. All of those are pretty awesome, but the trouble is they don't fit what where organisations are at. They build up the solution. They've got some code that automatically builds out all of the infrastructure, and then people go to use it and they're going, I don't know what that bit does. What does this bit do? And they're going, well, I don't know, I have to go and look at the code. And it becomes this kind of like pull and pull. It's a bit like a plunk, you know, and all of a sudden the data pops out. It's good, it's really awesome, but it doesn't always fit where every organisation's at. So this is where I come in with my little boatman, the accelerated data lake. How do we actually do something today with your data to get insights and excite your stakeholders and the people who actually want to consume the data, which could even be the general population with open data sets? We're going to look at that. So what is the accelerated data lake? I've got to fly through this. It is a centralised, effectively infinitely scalable environment. We use Amazon S3 as our service to store the data. We secure it from the minute it gets in. My mouth is one behind the slide, I can see that, but I'll get there. We secure it from day zero. So the minute the data arrives in the data lake, it's immediately encrypted. It's immediately given some security rules so people can't just access it, or services just can't access it just like that. It has data governance and metadata immediately applied to the data and catalogued. And you can grow that metadata and actually formalise what's important to you about the data. And then later, if you want to use other data cataloging tools like Calibra or Informatica or Relation or Alex Solutions or you name it, you can migrate to that, not a problem at all. I love this because I'm a data guy. It's still going to be SQL and BI ready. So the minute you get the data into the data lake, you can query it immediately like a normal database. I'm going to show you today, most of this is without a server. And you'll go, oh, I've got heaps of data. Give me 100 gig and I'll still do it. I'll do a billion rows. It makes no difference. You know, I was just speaking to Jared, sorry mate, before, and I said, it doesn't matter what you give me, I'll do it in front of you. If I had the data now, I would do it without any prep and I'd show you that we can consume it. It's really, really powerful. If we get this right, if we start getting these patterns of actually onboarding data, we're actually able to future-proof your organisation, because if we start creating a formal process for onboarding the data that has the security, the data governance in place, and you can query it, you've got an analytical and data science foundation, something that you can really start to grow and expand on, bring all of those disparate data sets from SQL Server and Oracle and all the other places together so you can actually join what a person who's a citizen is actually all about. So you can say, well, I've got some data over here and I've got some data over here, but it's all related to a person. Well, why not bring it under a person group and not worry about the service which actually provides it? So yeah, the whole thing has to be repeatable and extensible. Now, what is a 3 by 3 by 3? How much time have I got here? 19. Okay, we've got to move along here. 3 by 3. When we go and build this normally, we normally ask customers to give us 3 use cases, something that you either can't do today with your data, something where we can bring, if we could bring those data sets together, it will produce an insight or a benefit to the organisation that people would go, wow, this is incredible. This is something that we were quoted from another vendor and they took a year, they took our money and then they went away and we still got nothing, which man, holy cow, how many times I've seen that? It's unbelievable. It actually breaks my heart because I think everyone had such good intentions. We were sold the dream. The salespeople disappear. All the architects come in and say, well, this isn't what, what did they tell you, This is going to be really open and trust. I reckon you can trust it because we're working with what you need to get as an outcome from day 0, the minute we start. Geez, that's a really good fast animation. I don't know what's happened there. 3 workshops. So what we normally do is when we go out and see a customer, whether it's our ProServe team or partners, we like to run workshops that involve the people who are going to be consuming the data and getting the insights. And that can be just the business, people who use Tableau or ClickSense or Power BI, makes no difference. We then have people like a second workshop where we'll have the people who look after data security and IT security. Now, normally those 2 people don't get along because you'll have people who look after data classification and they say, well, no, you can't do anything. And IT security says, well, we can't provision anything. But you know what? Data classification is the most foundational piece we need to work out first because that actually is directly related to how we apply IT security now. If we can actually scope our data and our infrastructure that supports that, which is pretty much every bit of infrastructure because you think all the data is always floating through some kind of infrastructure, if we could classify that as sensitive or internal or for your use only or public, holy cow, you've just reduced your risk posture by using a policy that has the word internal in it. Man, just so pragmatic. I love it. Finally, we normally deliver this in 3 weeks. I know. Don't get out. This is not a lie. We do it in 3 weeks. The actual hard part is actually not delivering the solution. The hard part is actually working with the organisation to get the data and showing them how to onboard the data, which actually, I don't think it's that hard, but it's actually getting it out of those systems and getting it into the data lake is always the hardest part. But we've got really great patterns now for moving data from on-prem to cloud, either as a service or through a range of different mechanisms, but we provide a solution pretty much for any kind of data store from on-prem to cloud to move it securely into Amazon S3. Okay, we have lots of real use cases. We do have an organisation up in Queensland who's doing the connected vehicles. They had data in lots of different places, even APIs and IoT feeds, so streaming plus on-prem. It was across multiple departments, the data. Had our professional services team roll out the solution, and yeah, it was done in 3 weeks. We do this for lots of different organisations, and it's really getting faster and better all the time because we're improving ourselves. We're improving the code base all the time. We're extending its features. We're doing it in education, health, utilities, and essential services. Okay, we're good. The great thing is we open sourced all the code back in March. So you can go and actually take the code and actually go and try and build it. If you're not sure about how to build it, we've got people who can help you build it, but it comes with CloudFormation, which is out, to actually automate the build. We've got instructions on how to build it. And I can tell you the majority of people who ring me are guys. Because I don't know what it is about ladies, but they read the instructions. But whenever I have this presentation and someone goes to build it, the first thing is Barry gets on the phone, man, I couldn't do this thing, it doesn't work. Did you actually read the instructions? No, you said just run the code. I never said that, mate. I said, it says instructions. You have to read the instructions. It's very clear. It's actually made up of 3 blocks, and I'll go through those blocks shortly. We provide security and metadata templates, so all your technical, operational and business fields are already pre-built, so you actually just have to put some words in. That's right, we're only putting words in, we're not doing code. We're actually writing a story about the data. You don't have to code anything if you've built this solution. And as I say, the delivery can be done with our ProServe team or with partners. This is the solution. Very, very straightforward. It's got a really natural flow. Don't worry about this side yet. I'm going to get there. Over here, you'll see that we have an initiation process. That's when the data's come from your on-prem environment and landed inside our S3 bucket. And then the process kicks off where we validate the data, we apply the security rules, we attach metadata, and then we store it and make it available. And that's the process. The actual solution is made up of really only a few services. And notice I say it's a solution. It's not a little bespoke, even though it's like little Lego blocks, it's actually something that is repeatable as a package. So we have at the start an event, which is where we use a CloudWatch event to actually kick off a chronological job, or we actually use a Lambda event from when a file arrives in Amazon S3 to trigger a AWS step function. Now that is where a step function, if you don't know, is where we have a logical series of steps, either in series or parallel, that has a particular flow that has a start and an end. And that start and the end is really about where we go through and we say, right, is this data valid? Are the fields right? Is the data content right? If it's right, then let's actually attach security to it. Once we've attached security based on the file type, we'll then attach the data metadata. Once we've done that, we're going to catalog it. And then the data is immediately available. And when we're doing CDC or we're doing streaming, this whole process takes 3 seconds. And most of the time is like the warm up and cool down. It's crazy stuff. It's really super fast with small bits of data. As you go along and the data gets bigger, yes, of course it takes a little bit longer. When I say little, it can be a minute, it can be 2 minutes. If you've got gigabytes of data, yeah, it can be maybe 10 minutes. We can talk about that offline if you want to go through numbers. But we catalog it using Amazon DynamoDB because that lets us search really easily, as well as we save it in Amazon Elasticsearch. So we can have an API endpoint to query the catalog. And then finally, the data becomes available in Amazon S3. 12 minutes to do a miracle. All right, we can do this. So I'm going to show you that if we can do that, we can actually do all of our querying. We can do our visualization. We can do databases. We can do machine learning. We can do big data. And that's a little bit more. We can do some ETL. If you want to ask me about how to do serverless ETL at scale, which people are amazed about, I have this thing called the Athena Slingshot. Sounds like a cocktail, but it's not. What it is you're able to write code that actually creates ETL, it does ETL on data, that actually saves it back to the data lake and actually slingshots it back through the whole process. All right. Let's take a quick look at what we're going to do. I'm going to show you the data lake solution, which is actually the S3 bucket. And you can see we've got the left-hand side, we've got raw, staging, curated, and gold. And what that is are different levels of aggregation when it comes to staging, curated, and gold in most cases. Raw is where we actually do all the housekeeping with the security and metadata. And once all of that's done, we move it into staging to be able to consume the data. On this side, this is how we let people try to play with the data and explore it, because this should be immutable. This left-hand side should be immutable so that we know that we can trust it. We're going to show how we can actually bring data into just sort of like housekeeping. Unlike my desktop and my file system, this is actually really nice. It's like actually got some structure. So when we get data from the source systems, we create folders for those source systems. And then finally, we start structuring data into what I call data domains. All right, this is where we're going to get to. I'm going to show you how to do a query without a database where we can do a thing like, I want to query the IDs in a location in S3 where a year is 2019. It doesn't have to be a year, it could be by a campus, it could be by a government department, it could be by a product, it could be by anything, it doesn't really matter. And we're going to do a query like that. And you're going, well, okay, that's really cool, Paul. I can see that there's staff and there's a folder over here with staff, and I can somehow query this. But you've got clients and staff, and maybe I've got something else which is to do with geospatial. Well, the cool thing is, and I'll show you this, is that we can do this. We can do joins with lots of different file structures without having to pre-warm it or do anything else. We can actually just query that data and get some insights. So got to do the demo. So let's flip that screen, buddy, and hopefully this isn't flat. Now, everyone hears me at Amazon when they go, and they freak out, right? Because I do everything live, even logging in. It scares people because stuff usually goes wrong. Never for me. Today's the day. All right. What I'm doing is I've actually been streaming some data into Kinesis, which is just our streaming environment. I've got this simulator. Actually, if you ever want to do streaming at scale, and I did this the other day, I did 100,000 events a second, which is just like ridiculous. The wave came and it was like, you could feel the power dimming in Sydney. Anyway, this is pushing through the last hour or so, 269,000 records of data. And if you go to GitHub, you can actually install this yourself. It's Amazon Kinesis Data Generator. I may have a link at the end. I can't remember. I'm getting old. But anyway, I'm streaming this data because I want to show you this is happening live and showing you that I can query it. And what this data is actually smart camera data. A couple of intersections in Australia I've set up with real latitude and longitude locations where the cameras are actually identifying cars, motorbikes, people, animals, rubbish and so on. And it's just creating that data. All of that data is going into this data lake. Now, you saw before, if I just type in data lake, how are we going to do this? You'll see here I've got raw and staging and all of those things. What I'm going to do is move through pretty quickly. So I want to show you that inside here under staging, I've actually got a range of different folders. And what I'm going to do is just to show you really quickly, because we haven't got that much time, hopefully we get to the streaming stuff, I'm going to take you into a domain called meteorology. So this is data that's related to each other, but they're actually from two different APIs. So this data is streaming, and actually, again, I'm really lazy. This has been running for months, and I just don't turn it off because I think it's pretty cool when it's just running, and then people check the weather. But let me just show you, what I've got here is meteorology, so that's the main group, so it could be people, it could be anything like that. And then I've broken it down into AusBOM data and New Zealand data for the weather. And then I've split the data up into what are called partitions, or effectively they're just folders like a normal breadcrumb, right? And you can see that I've gone through and I can see the year, month and day. And there's heaps of files in here, like you'll see, obviously we're just collecting data every 15 minutes and it's just in there. It's all JSON, so I've done nothing with it. So just try to make sure that we don't trick you with anything. Now, what I'm going to do is show you two things. First thing is this data has already been processed through the actual data lake onboarding process. And what that means is we've actually automatically encrypted the data, which means you can't get that unless you can access the environment with the right rules, the right security policies. We've attached what are called tags, and tags are how we actually apply security to the data. And you can see here what I've done is I've used some words that make, for me, really common sense. What is the data? Well, I've classified it as public. What's the use case? It's analytics. And I've got a project in there. Now, the great thing about this, I can create an IAM policy, a rule set that says, if this is prod, public, and analytics, and you've got access to that particular role, you immediately can get access to this data. If I flip this, if I change one word, if I say, right, it's no longer public, it's now sensitive, people can't query that data anymore. And that's with other services, which I'm going to show you in just a sec, which is with Athena, which is a NoSQL ad hoc querying engine. Pretty much anything. If we set this up correctly, if you've got only a set of rules that say, well, you can only access public analytical data that's in a prod environment, pretty much that makes it difficult for you to get to across a lot of the services if you set up that role correctly. So that's how we do the security on the data. But look at this, we've also got inside here another wrapper. Let me close the tags one. 5 minutes, all right, we're going to produce a miracle here. I've got some metadata, but not everything. We've actually got two speeds of metadata. We've got the metadata that we attach to the object. So this is a file, right, a raw file, but we actually catalog metadata that's at a really granular level. So we've got every single thing that includes the fields, the aliases for the fields. So if someone calls something an ID, it might be bomb ID, it might be ref ID, it might be whatever ID, but we put all of that information in. We attach all the provenance and the history of the data and so on. So we have some data in S3, and then we have some metadata against the object in S3, and then we actually catalog it in DynamoDB as well as Elasticsearch. And if anyone wants to know why we do two, I'll talk to you after the session. I'll explain it to you. So there you go. So you can see I've got a lot of data in here. The whole process is happening all the time, every 15 minutes. And what I'm going to show you, because of my limited amount of time, is I'm going to jump through to Athena. Now, Athena is our managed ad hoc querying service. The reason why I'm going here is because I want to show you that I can query this data immediately. Now, how I do that, there is actually a piece of or a component that sits between S3, Amazon S3 and Athena, and that is AWS Glue. So I don't know whether you've seen that today in the previous session. I know that Craig Roach spoke about Glue and a few of these bits and pieces. But what happens is Glue's able to look into S3 and actually crawl and learn about what data, what objects are in Amazon S3. And it's able to create a virtual database and a virtual table that creates like a reference to all of the files. Now that's running all the time. I've got that running on smart city data, vehicle data, weather data, even got university data, always running. And if anything changes, it updates that list and says, hey, you know what, I found there's another 10 or 15 files. All right, I'm going to show you what's going on here. In here, Athena is able to see Glue's virtual database and tables, and it's able to make that available as a query. So have a look at this. I'm going into meteorology, and you'll see here, here's a virtual table. I'm looking at the data inside S3, and you'll see here, this is what Glue does. It actually looks at the data and says, hey, you know what, I can work out all the field names. It's like having a data analyst without a bad attitude. It's true, right? I've worked with them. It's like they go, mate, that's a big integer. I go, no, it's just an integer. It's not that big, you know? Or they go, it's string, or they say, no, it's a varchar 255. And I said, what's the difference, mate? Oh, that's Microsoft. Sorry, I forgot. You like to have your special words for things. That's okay. I'm being cheeky because I know that's not true. Have a look at this. It works it all out, right? But look at this. I'm going to query the table. Simon. I'm going to need, they ran in front of the screen. No, I can't do it in 2 minutes. I can't. So this is running. Oh, stupid, it's already done. That's the trouble with this stuff. It goes too fast even for me. So here you go. Have a look at this. So there's the data. Okay, it's not very fair because I did 10 rows, right? So I did 10 rows, but look, it's transformed all the JSON into a normal table structure. Okay, can't do 10 rows. Let's just do the whole lot, because I think if we don't do the whole lot, you'll just go, yeah, Macey, that's all fine. You talk all this trash talk. And so what I'm going to do is run the whole lot, right? I don't know. I've got 3 or 4 months of data every 15 minutes, thousands and thousands of files. And this is transforming the data on the fly. It knows where all the references are, and it's going to query the data. Yeah. No, don't laugh. It's going to work. It's not a problem. I like the hecklers in the room. This is like, I could do a joke about that, but I won't. But look at that. I could go forever on that thing. It'll just keep going. So what's happening is that is happening live. The transformation is happening live. The actual building of this data is live. But one thing, and this is this Athena Slingshot thing, I didn't really have it planned to talk about. Every time we do this query, do you know what's happening? That output of this data is being sent back to the data lake. And we're able to create queries that actually are saving the data in a particular structure. Now, that was a bit of a waste, wasn't it? Because I just did it scanned 600 meg of data and it took 17 seconds at a total cost of 0.00025 cents. So it did that. That was pretty cool. It saved that data back to Amazon S3. But the trouble is, I don't want that. I actually want to do this. I just want the station, I want the lat and the long. Do I spell that right? Sometimes I spell things wrong. I've got to back everything out and apologise. So what I'm doing now is I'm actually doing the same query, taking a few fields out and saying, well, I just want that as ETL. Now you're probably thinking, well, this is pretty lightweight stuff, but we can do time series, windowing, aggregations across multiple folders and structures that make up these domains. We're able to do statistical analysis on the data on the fly using in-row calculations and saving all that data back out to Amazon S3 to make available for potentially something like Open Data, your internal analytics team, and you've done this all without a server. I love this. Now, all of the stuff that I've been speaking about, you'll see here that if I look at this guy here, you'll see that I've had streaming analytics going the whole time. I'm scared to do this. But you'll see in here, I've actually got the data streaming in. It knows the location, it knows the object, it knows the count of the object. Yeah, I'll show you. I know I'm 1 minute over. I need 3 more. I'm going to need 3. Do you mind if I do 3 more? Nah. You just 5. Give me a 5 for the because I'm committed to you, you know, customer obsession. So here's the data coming through from that stream. Okay, I'd have to sort the date, but it's truly coming through. And I can see that I'm getting an aggregation over time for that stream that's coming through. Now the bit where I wanted to show you was that if I had a lookup table that was in CSV, like a file, a raw file that, you know, that's the person who's in that silo, you know, on the little angle who doesn't want to help. They've got a geospatial file that they never want to share. Imagine they shared that and stuck that in a data lake, and then we had use cases where we said we want to know the intersection between a latitude and a longitude of a street, tie that together with a weather observation with a particular radius with the weather from the bomb, and tie that together with actually what's happening in the street. You're going, oh my God, how do we do that with S3? Well, watch this. I've actually got down here, this is one I did prepare earlier, yes, I have to admit, but I'm going to show you the query just to be fair. So I'm going to just show you this so you can actually see what's going on. I'm going to delete the create, because that's a view, right? We're not going to do that. We're going to just run this thing and just hope to goodness it's going to work. So what I've done, I'm going to show you that it's a bit small, isn't it, for people up the back. I've got data coming from camera locations, which is a CSV file from Little Miss, I don't want to give it to you. And then up here, we've actually got the streaming data coming in. 2 different folders in Amazon S3, joining them. Oh, it's already done. Okay, cool. So there was no limit on that, by the way. And this is streaming at how much? It was 200 and something thousand. Yeah, so if I scrolled through that, that would just go forever, seriously. All without a thing. So we did only, look, it only worked out it needed 44 meg to do this calculation. So, and 7 seconds. And that's the entire data set saved to Amazon S3 and made available for your team. Again, when you actually bring it into Amazon S3, the security is attached automatically, the metadata is attached automatically, which means if you've set up this data set to arrive in a particular location in Amazon S3 and that rule set is applied, that means, yeah, okay, stop, okay, we're shutting the shop. This happens every time. We're able to create this kind of workflow that doesn't involve too much human intervention, but actually people who get the data can actually do what they need to do with the data instead of trying to prepare it and trying to get access to it across disparate systems. If I was doing this 5 years ago, you know what I'd be doing, and I love TIBCO or Informatica, or no one's here from there. You'd be buying all that stuff and try to pipeline that together, and that would take months. It would have to go through all of this life cycle where all of this can be automated with CloudFormation. Even the SQL, you can inject SQL in, capture the ID of the SQL that you created and actually repeat that process automatically as a flywheel for success. We're going to go back to the slides. We're going to try and do something that doesn't give anyone an epileptic fit here. We're just going to do this really, really quickly. I didn't need to do this slide. This is all I need to do. If we do the data lake, really? You're going already? I didn't even get to do the final 4 things. That's it. No, we're over. There you go. What I want to share with you was that in the pack, make sure you scan, because where's the thing here? It doesn't go backwards. When you go and scan, you'll get all the references to where I've done blogs, I've got webinars, I've got the GitHub repo, and I've got Lake Formation, I've got the data lake solution. Oh, you don't have to take a photo. No, if you go up and scan, you'll get it. That's a promise. So, thank you so much. I know it was very quick and short, but make sure you do that.